good evening. You've arrived at a quiet place meant for rest. There's nothing you need to do here, nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to understand or remember. This time is not for learning or paying close attention. It's simply a calm science story, spoken slowly and allowed to remain in the background as you rest. You don't need to follow every sentence. You don't need to stay with the words. If your attention drifts, that's completely fine. Right now, your body is already doing most of what it needs to do on its own. Breathing continues without effort. The surface beneath you is supporting your weight. There's no posture to hold and no adjustment required. This audio isn't here to guide you somewhere new. It isn't here to improve anything. It's here to remain steady and predictable, the way many natural processes are when they're allowed to unfold without interruption. Everything you'll hear tonight is based on well-established scientific understanding. Not ideas meant to surprise, not explanations meant to impress. Just observations that have been measured, described, and repeated over time. They'll be shared slowly, without urgency, because nothing here is happening quickly, and nothing here requires a response from you. Tonight's topic is thunderstorms, not as events to focus on, and not as something to imagine closely, simply as a natural process, one that forms, changes, and settles according to familiar physical conditions. There's no need to picture anything clearly. If images appear on their own, they don't need to be held. They can pass just as easily as they arrive. If you fall asleep at any point, that's expected. If you remain awake and only catch fragments of what's being said, that's fine too. This story doesn't depend on sequence or build-up. You might notice small pauses between phrases. Those pauses are intentional. They're part of the rhythm, allowing the nervous system to settle without being asked to do anything at all. For now, it's enough to simply be here, listening if you want to, not listening if you don't. The science will continue quietly in the background, slowly, evenly, just as the natural processes it describes continue whether or not they're being noticed. As you continue resting, there's no need to change your position unless your body naturally wants to. If you're already comfortable, you can let stillness remain. Breathing is happening on its own. You don't need to guide it. You don't need to slow it down or make it deeper. Each breath arrives, and then it leaves, without effort. There's nothing to improve about the way your body is breathing right now. It's responding naturally to the quiet and to the absence of demand. The muscles in your face may already be softening, the small muscles around the eyes, the jaw resting without being held in place. There's no need to release anything deliberately, no need to relax on command. The nervous system understands how to move toward rest when the environment is steady and predictable. Your shoulders may feel heavy, not pulled downward, just supported. Gravity continues doing what it always does, evenly and without urgency. It doesn't require attention. It doesn't need to be noticed. Your arms are where they are. They don't need symmetry. They don't need a specific position. They're simply present, resting along with the rest of your body. If there's any remaining tension, it doesn't need to disappear. The body doesn't require complete relaxation in order to rest. It only needs time and a sense of safety. Your chest rises and falls gently with each breath. The pace may change slightly from moment to moment. That's normal. Breathing adjusts continuously without asking for permission. Lower in the body, the abdomen moves in response to each breath. There's no need to hold it in, no need to control it. It responds naturally to pressure and release. Your back is supported by the surface beneath you. There's nothing to hold upright, nothing to balance. The weight of your body is already being carried. You don't need to assist. Your legs rest where they are. The muscles don't need to be loose or heavy or warm. They can simply exist at the far end of the body, quiet and unremarkable. The feet don't need attention. They don't need sensation. They don't need to be noticed. As these sensations remain steady, the brain begins to register the lack of demand. There's no task waiting, no response required, no change expected. This is often when mental activity starts to slow, not because it's being forced to, but because there's nothing pressing to react to. Thoughts may still appear. They might be fragments of the day, images, unfinished sentences. They don't need to be pushed away. They don't need to be followed. They can pass through the mind the same way sounds pass through a quiet room, present for a moment, then gone. If your attention drifts away from these words, that's completely fine. The body doesn't require continuous input. It responds just as well to consistency and tone. The voice you're hearing isn't here to guide you somewhere specific. It's here to remain steady, allowing your internal systems to settle at their own pace. There's nowhere else to be, nothing else to prepare for. The night doesn't require readiness. You can continue resting exactly as you are, breathing, supported, unchanged. The body already knows how to do this. As the body remains settled, attention often becomes less focused on individual sensations and more open to a general sense of steadiness. There isn't a clear moment when this shift happens. It doesn't arrive all at once. It unfolds gradually, without announcement. In the natural world, many processes move in this same way, not in sudden steps, but through slow changes that are easy to overlook. Temperature adjusts over time. Air moves gently from one place to another. Light fades across the evening without a distinct boundary between day and night. These changes don't require coordination. They don't respond to observation. They continue whether or not anyone is paying attention. The body is familiar with this kind of rhythm. It developed within environments shaped by repetition and gradual variation, not constant alertness. Because of that, predictable patterns tend to feel safe. They don't demand quick reactions. They don't signal urgency. In science, many systems behave in similar ways. Large-scale processes often unfold slowly, guided by consistent conditions rather than sudden events. Once these processes begin, they tend to continue along stable paths, sometimes for hours, sometimes for much longer. They don't need correction. They don't require supervision. They persist simply because the surrounding conditions remain steady. When scientists describe systems like this, they often return to the same simple ideas: movement, balance, gradual change. The details can become complex, but the underlying principles remain straightforward. This simplicity is part of what makes these processes easy to listen to. There's nothing hidden behind the description, no surprise waiting to appear, just continuity. All around, slow changes are always taking place. They form a quiet background beneath more noticeable activity. The mind doesn't need to track them closely. It only needs to recognize that they're there, ongoing, stable, and unaffected by momentary shifts. This kind of awareness doesn't sharpen focus, it softens it. There's no need to imagine specific scenes or hold clear images. If impressions arise on their own, they can pass naturally. What matters more is the sense of gradual movement, the feeling of things progressing at a pace that doesn't rush toward an outcome. In this state, time can begin to feel less structured. Moments don't need to be counted. There's no sequence to follow. The voice continues at an even pace, not to hold attention, but to provide a steady reference point, something consistent enough that the mind doesn't need to stay alert. This is often when thinking becomes less verbal, less linear, not because it stops entirely, but because it no longer needs to organize itself around decisions or tasks. Rest doesn't arrive suddenly. It settles in layers, first in the body, then in the breath, and gradually in the spaces between thoughts. You don't need to notice when that happens. You don't need to mark the transition. The process continues on its own. And the quiet science story will continue too, moving at the same unhurried pace as the natural systems it describes. A thunderstorm is a type of weather system. It isn't a single moment. It isn't an event that begins and ends suddenly. It's a process. Like many patterns in the atmosphere, it forms when certain conditions are present, and it changes gradually as those conditions shift. At its most basic level, a thunderstorm involves air that is warm, air that contains moisture, and movement upward through the atmosphere. None of these elements are unusual on their own. Warm air is common. Moisture in the air is common. Air moving from one place to another is always happening. A thunderstorm develops when these ordinary elements come together in a particular way. Warm air tends to be lighter than cooler air around it. Because of this, it has a natural tendency to rise. As it rises, it moves into areas where the surrounding air is cooler. This change happens gradually, over distance and time. Moisture is already present in the air, even when it can't be seen. As rising air cools, that moisture begins to change form. These changes don't occur all at once. They happen step by step as the air continues moving upward. A thunderstorm is not something the atmosphere decides to create. It's simply what happens when the conditions allow certain movements to continue. There's no clear boundary that marks the beginning, no moment when the system switches on. Instead, small changes build upon one another, slowly enough that they're often unnoticed at first. From the ground, these processes may feel distant. They take place above, spread out across large areas of the sky. Most of the time, they unfold without drawing attention to themselves. The atmosphere is always adjusting. It's constantly redistributing heat and moisture, responding to differences in temperature and pressure. A thunderstorm is one way this adjustment can occur. It's not separate from the rest of the weather. It's part of the same ongoing movement. Once the conditions that support upward motion weaken, the process begins to slow. The system gradually changes shape. Eventually, it settles back into the surrounding atmosphere. There's no sharp ending. Just as it forms gradually, it fades in the same way. From a scientific perspective, thunderstorms are studied as systems rather than isolated events. They're understood by observing how air moves, how moisture behaves, and how energy is transferred within the atmosphere. These observations have been repeated many times across different regions and climates. The explanations don't rely on rare or unusual forces. They're based on simple physical principles that apply everywhere. Because of this, thunderstorms follow patterns that are familiar, even if they aren't always predictable in detail. They arise when conditions align. They change as those conditions shift. And they pass when the balance moves in a different direction. There's nothing in this process that requires urgency, nothing that happens all at once. It's a sequence of gradual adjustments, unfolding at a pace set by the atmosphere itself. You don't need to picture the process clearly. You don't need to track each step. It's enough to know that a thunderstorm is not a sudden interruption, but part of a continuous flow, one more way the atmosphere moves toward balance over time. Warm air behaves differently from cooler air around it. It doesn't need to be pushed. It doesn't need a forceful change. Because it is less dense, warm air has a natural tendency to move upward. This movement isn't sudden. It begins slowly, guided by small differences in temperature that exist throughout the atmosphere. These differences are common. They form whenever sunlight warms the surface of the Earth, or when air masses with different temperatures meet. As warm air starts to rise, it doesn't travel in a straight line. It moves gradually, adjusting to the air around it. At the same time, moisture is already present within the air itself. Even when the air feels dry, it still contains water vapor. This moisture is invisible. It doesn't announce itself. It simply moves along with the air that carries it. As rising air reaches higher levels of the atmosphere, the surrounding air becomes cooler. This change happens steadily, not all at once. When air cools, its ability to hold moisture decreases. The water vapor begins to shift, forming tiny droplets or ice crystals. This process doesn't require attention. It doesn't require coordination. It follows physical conditions that are consistent and well understood. The upward motion continues as long as the surrounding conditions allow it. Warm air rises, cooler air settles. This exchange creates a slow circulation, moving energy upward and outward. Nothing in this process is abrupt. There is no clear moment when movement suddenly accelerates. Instead, small changes accumulate. Warm air continues to lift. Moisture continues to respond to cooling. Over time, this steady upward motion contributes to the larger structure of the storm system. But even then, the movement remains gradual. It doesn't rush toward an outcome. The atmosphere is not trying to create an event. It is simply responding to differences in temperature and pressure, redistributing energy in the most direct way available. As conditions shift, the upward motion can weaken. When the air is no longer significantly warmer than its surroundings, the lift begins to slow. The process adjusts naturally, without intervention. From the ground, this movement may go unnoticed. It takes place over wide areas, spread across layers of air far above. There is no need to imagine the motion clearly, no need to follow it step by step. It's enough to know that warm air rises because of its basic physical properties. Moisture changes as temperatures change, and upward motion continues only as long as the conditions remain in balance. These interactions form the foundation of a thunderstorm, not through force or urgency, but through steady, predictable responses to the environment. The same principles apply wherever air is warmed and allowed to move freely. They are not unique. They are part of the atmosphere's ongoing adjustment. As these processes continue quietly overhead, they do so without requiring attention. They unfold at their own pace, guided by simple physical relationships that remain consistent over time. And as long as those conditions persist, the motion continues slowly, evenly, and without any need to be noticed. As warm, moist air continues moving upward, gradual changes begin to appear in the atmosphere. One of these changes is the formation of clouds. Clouds don't form suddenly. They emerge slowly, as moisture in the air shifts from an invisible state into tiny droplets or ice particles. This happens as rising air cools, not sharply, not all at once. The cooling takes place over distance and time, shaped by the surrounding layers of air. Clouds are not objects. They don't have firm edges or fixed shapes. They are collections of very small particles, suspended and carried by the movement of air. As upward motion continues, these particles can spread through a larger vertical range of the atmosphere. This vertical development doesn't happen evenly everywhere. Some areas rise more steadily than others. Some slow down sooner. The result is a cloud structure that changes gradually, responding to the balance between rising air and the surrounding environment. There's no single point where a cloud suddenly becomes something else. Instead, it transitions through stages that blend into one another. From the ground, these changes may not be obvious. Clouds can appear stable, even while subtle motion is taking place within them. The atmosphere is layered, with temperature and pressure shifting as height increases. As air moves upward through these layers, it continues to adjust. This adjustment is what allows clouds to extend higher while still remaining part of the same system. Nothing in this process requires force. Nothing is being pushed beyond its limits. The vertical growth of clouds is simply the continuation of the same upward motion that began near the surface. As long as the air remains warmer than its surroundings, it can continue rising. As long as moisture is present, clouds can persist. When those conditions begin to change, the upward movement slows. The cloud structure adjusts in response. Some areas stop rising. Others continue for a while longer. Over time, the system reaches a point where the movement becomes less organized. The cloud no longer develops upward as easily. This shift doesn't mark an ending. It's just another adjustment. Clouds are always responding to their surroundings. They form, change, and settle without needing to be observed. They don't move with intention. They don't hold shape by choice. They exist because the physical conditions support them. From a scientific perspective, cloud development is understood as a result of temperature differences, moisture, and motion acting together. These factors have been measured and observed repeatedly. They behave in consistent ways, even though the details can vary from place to place. There's no need to picture the cloud clearly, no need to imagine height or shape. It's enough to recognize that clouds develop gradually, extending upward only as long as the surrounding conditions allow. They remain part of the atmosphere's ongoing movement, forming quietly, adjusting continuously, and never requiring attention to continue doing what they do. By now, there's no need to keep track of what has already been said. Nothing here depends on remembering details. Nothing is moving toward a conclusion. The processes described continue whether or not they're being followed. Warm air still rises where conditions allow it. Moisture continues to shift as temperatures change. Clouds adjust gradually within the atmosphere. These movements don't require attention. They aren't affected by observation. The repetition is intentional. When information stops changing, the mind no longer needs to stay alert. It can remain open without monitoring what comes next. This is often the point where listening becomes less defined. Words may still be heard, but they don't need to be interpreted. They can pass through without forming clear images or thoughts. The body remains supported. Breathing continues at its own pace. Nothing has shifted suddenly. The environment is unchanged. There's no signal that something new is about to happen. The same ideas return gently, not to reinforce meaning, but to maintain rhythm. Air continues to move. Temperature continues to adjust. Moisture continues to respond. These facts do not require further explanation. They remain true whether or not they're considered. This is a point of permission. Permission to stop listening closely. Permission to stop following sentences. Permission to let the voice become part of the background. There's no advantage in staying awake for what comes next. The science does not become more complex. The pace does not increase. Everything continues as it has been. If sleep arrives now, nothing is missed. The processes being described do not move toward an ending. They repeat. They continue. If awareness fades, it fades naturally. If it returns briefly later, it can drift again just as easily. There's no correct way to experience this moment. Some nights, rest arrives quickly. Other nights, it arrives in stages. Both are normal. The body does not need instruction. The mind does not need reassurance. The steady rhythm is enough. The voice remains consistent. The tone does not change. There's nothing to prepare for. From here on, the information remains familiar. No new ideas will be introduced. The story does not progress forward in the way stories usually do. It simply stays. And in that steadiness, sleep has room to settle quietly, without effort, and without needing to be noticed at all. Within a thunderstorm, there is another process that can occur. It doesn't begin suddenly. It doesn't appear without preparation. Lightning is the result of a gradual imbalance that builds over time as air and moisture continue moving and adjusting within the storm. As clouds develop and change, tiny electrical charges can separate and collect in different regions. This separation happens quietly. It isn't something that can be felt or noticed as it forms. The atmosphere allows these charges to build slowly, guided by the same motion and structure that has already been described. Nothing here is acting with intent. Nothing is choosing an outcome. The charges continue to shift as long as the surrounding conditions remain in place. Eventually, when the difference becomes large enough, the imbalance resolves. This resolution happens quickly, but what leads up to it takes much longer. The process is not about speed, it's about accumulation. Lightning does not add energy to the system. It releases energy that has already been present, redistributing it in a way that restores balance. From a scientific perspective, this behavior follows well-understood physical principles. It has been observed repeatedly, measured carefully, and described in consistent ways. There is no need to focus on the moment itself. No need to imagine brightness or movement. What matters more is the pattern. A slow build-up, a brief release, and then a return to gradual adjustment. This sequence can repeat within a storm, or it may happen only once. The timing is not fixed. It depends entirely on how the surrounding conditions continue to change. When those conditions weaken, the build-up slows. The imbalance no longer grows. The system settles back toward a more even state. From the ground, this process may seem distant. It takes place across layers of air far above, spread out over wide areas. It does not require attention to continue. It does not respond to observation. Like the other processes within a thunderstorm, it unfolds according to simple relationships between motion, temperature, and balance. There is no urgency in this description. No need to anticipate what comes next. The buildup and release occur as part of the same steady system. Air continues to move. Moisture continues to adjust. Charges continue to redistribute when conditions allow. These processes do not interrupt one another. They are different expressions of the same underlying movement. You don't need to follow the details. You don't need to keep track of sequence or cause. It's enough to recognize that lightning, like everything else within the storm, is not an isolated event. It is one more way the atmosphere moves toward balance, briefly, quietly, and without requiring awareness. After lightning releases energy within the atmosphere, another process follows naturally. This process is not separate. It is not an event of its own. It is simply sound. Thunder is the movement of sound through air. When air is heated and expands quickly, it creates a pressure change. That change moves outward, traveling through the surrounding air as a sound wave. Sound does not rush. It spreads gradually, shaped by distance and the properties of the air it passes through. Because of this, thunder is not heard all at once. It arrives in stages, changing as it travels. The sound may seem close or distant, clear or softened, short or extended. These differences are not signals. They don't indicate importance or intensity. They are simply the result of how sound behaves as it moves through space. Sound travels much more slowly than light. Because of this, thunder always arrives after the process that created it. This delay is consistent. It does not change. As distance increases, sound spreads out and loses definition. Sharp edges soften. Distinct moments blend together. What reaches the ear is not the source itself, but a softened version shaped by air, distance, and time. Thunder does not move with purpose. It does not seek attention. It continues until the energy that set it in motion has been fully dispersed. This can take seconds, sometimes longer. From a scientific perspective, thunder is understood as a simple consequence of sound propagation. It follows physical principles that are the same everywhere sound exists. There is no need to react to it, no need to interpret it. It is not a message. It does not require response. For the nervous system, distant and irregular sounds can fade into the background when they are predictable and non-threatening. When nothing follows them, the body learns that no action is required. Sound becomes part of the environment, like wind moving through trees, like distant movement that does not approach. Thunder behaves this way when it is allowed to remain just sound moving outward, losing structure and settling into quiet. There is no pattern to follow, no timing to anticipate. Each sound passes on its own, and once it has passed, the air remains. The atmosphere continues adjusting. Movement continues quietly overhead. The sound does not change what comes next. It arrives, it spreads, and then it fades, without needing to be noticed. A thunderstorm does not move in a straight line. It follows a cycle. Warm air rises, moisture shifts, movement slows, balance returns. These steps do not happen once. They repeat while conditions allow. The repetition is not exact. Each cycle is slightly different, but the pattern remains familiar. Air continues to move upward where it can. Where it can't, it settles. Moisture responds to temperature. Clouds adjust to motion. Energy redistributes, then spreads out. Nothing in this cycle needs to be tracked. There is no starting point to find, no ending to wait for. The system simply continues, adjusting as it goes. When the differences that support movement begin to fade, the cycle slows. Upward motion becomes less organized. Clouds change gradually. The storm does not stop suddenly. It does not collapse. It eases. The same movements that allowed it to form now allow it to settle. Warm air no longer rises as easily. Moisture spreads more evenly. Sound becomes less frequent, then less defined. the atmosphere returns to a quieter state without interruption. These cycles are not rare. They are one of many ways the atmosphere adjusts itself over time. Similar patterns occur in other systems as well. Movement builds, balance shifts, energy redistributes, and then steadiness returns. The details are not important here. What matters is the repetition, the way familiar patterns allow the mind to let go of effort. When nothing new is introduced, attention does not need to stay alert. It can soften. The same ideas return gently, not to add meaning, but to maintain rhythm. Air moves, moisture adjusts, energy spreads out. Then it happens again, or it doesn't. Both are normal. There is no signal when the cycle changes, no announcement. The system simply responds to its surroundings. For the listener, there is nothing to anticipate. The storm is not building toward anything. It is not holding tension. It is moving through a familiar sequence, one that does not rush and does not resist. As this repetition continues, the specific words matter less. They no longer need to describe anything clearly. They only need to remain steady. The cycle repeats, then it slows, then it blends back into the larger movement of the atmosphere. Nothing is required from you. The process continues on its own, and as it does, there is less and less to follow. Only a sense of continuation, repeating softly, without needing attention. The rhythm continues. Nothing changes direction, nothing resolves. The same steady movement remains in place. Air continues adjusting. Moisture remains present. Energy spreads out quietly. There is no signal marking time, no moment that needs to be noticed. The voice remains even. It does not ask for attention. Words arrive, then they pass. Sentences do not need to be completed. Meaning does not need to be held. The space between phrases is enough. Breathing continues on its own. There is no need to notice it. The body remains supported. Nothing needs to be held in place. If awareness drifts away, it does not need to return. If it returns briefly, it can drift again just as easily. Nothing here depends on attention. The processes being described do not change when they are not observed. They do not slow down or speed up. They continue at the same pace they always have. There is no conclusion waiting, no final thought to reach. The storm does not move toward an ending. It blends back into the larger movement of the atmosphere. The repetition remains gentle. The tone remains the same. There is no reason to stay awake for what comes next. The words are no longer carrying information. They are only carrying rhythm. That rhythm does not need to be understood. It can remain quietly in the background, like distant motion, like slow cycles that do not announce themselves. Nothing more is required. The night continues, movement continues, and the quiet remains. The rhythm remains. Nothing shifts, nothing completes. The same steady patterns continue without change. Air continues to move far beyond awareness. Moisture remains evenly distributed. Energy spreads out and settles. There is no moment to notice, no marker of time passing. The voice stays present, but it does not ask to be followed. Words come softly, then they fade. Some sentences may not feel finished. That's fine. They don't need to be. The space between them is enough. Breathing continues on its own. There is no need to pay attention to it. The body remains supported. Nothing needs to be adjusted or held. If sleep has already arrived, the sound continues without being heard. If awareness returns briefly, it can drift again just as easily. Nothing here depends on listening. The processes being described do not change. They do not slow down. They do not speed up. They continue exactly as they are. There is no ending approaching, no final idea waiting. The night does not move toward a conclusion. It simply unfolds. The repetition remains gentle. The tone remains even. There is no reason to stay awake for what comes next. The words no longer carry meaning. They only carry rhythm. That rhythm does not need to be understood. It can remain quietly in the background, like distant motion, like slow cycles continuing somewhere far away. Nothing more is required. The quiet stays, the movement stays, and everything continues without needing to be noticed at all.